Okay, no. So now we're going to start tonight from where we stopped last week. So we were given an assignment of the Adidas data set, and we were asked to perform some analysis and also build charts. Last week we concluded charts in this class, and the assignment focused on us doing our analysis and building charts from each analysis that we were able to do. So I saw the back end of the form. So many of us attempted the assignment, and so many people did well. So kudos to those of you that were able to actually do the assignment and submit. So what we are going to be starting from this class is a review of that assignment. We are going to be doing the corrections, which means I am going to be analyzing this Adidas data set based on those insights that we're given. So I'll be doing that. We have the insights on our screen now, 13 of them. So that's what we are going to be doing. And then I'm going to be building a chart for each of the analysis so that you see the way I do mine. And after we are done, last week, we also talked about shapes. After we are finished doing this analysis, then we are going to build a dashboard. We are going to build a dashboard for this same Adidas dataset analysis that we are going to do this night. So we have a lot in stock for tonight. So please stay tuned and pay attention because there's a lot to learn tonight. So without further ado, we'll just go straight into the business of the day. So my data set is already in a table. I can just go ahead and get my first pivot table, which will enable me analyze that first inside there. So we asked to get the product category per revenue. The product category per revenue. So I'm just going to get my first pivot table there. Let me get my first pivot table there. So you guys that did the assignment, you can just follow me and compare it to what you have to know if it's correct or not. So since we are getting the revenue per product, so I'm going to get my product listed out. I'm going to put it on rows. Let me maximize this so you can see. Now revenue. So revenue, I'm going to take sales as the revenue for this data set. I'm going to use sales as my revenue for this data set. So I'm just going to drag sales and put it in my values column. I'm going to drag sales and put it in my values column. So one thing I can do to improve this analysis, since it's talking about sales, sales is in currency. When you're talking about sales, when you're talking about revenue, it is always in currency. And since this is an Adidas US data set, so I'm just going to use the currency of the US. So I'm just going to select the values here and put it in currency. And put it in currency and just get rid of the extra decimal places. So this tells more story. This improves the analysis because we are talking about sales. At least there has to be a currency attached to sales. So I chose the dollar currency. So what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and build a chart. I'm just going to go ahead and build an accompanying chart with this. But before I do that, I told you guys last week, we did sorting and filtering. I'm going to sort my pivot table so I know which product actually comes first. So I know which product actually has the largest revenue there, and that is men's street footwear. So after doing that sorting, I can just go and build a chart. So I'm going to go with this first one. This clustered column is a good chart to represent this data. Is a good chart to represent this data. So last week, we also talked about chart elements, and I defined chart elements as things that can modify or improve how well your chart is going to be read. So I'm just going to be doing some little modifications to this chart using my chart elements. For example, I'm going to add a chart title. I'm going to add a chart title, but before I do that, I'm going to name my worksheet. I said this also last week. When you are doing your analysis, especially when you are doing multiple analysis, always name the sheet. This is what I mean. Your worksheet is right over here where my mouse. If you guys can see my mouse at the bottom here. So this analysis is on sheet 2. I'm just going to rename it and name it according to the analysis that I have on that screen. So this is showing me a product or revenue. Sorry, let me rename that. Revenue per product. And I think I'm just going to use that same type, that same sheet title as my chart title too. Revenue per product. Or let me take it the other way. The product per revenue. I can just make this a bit bigger. Then I can get rid of my grid lines. I can get rid of the grid lines I have in the background. I don't need a legend here because it's just one value. I'm going to get rid of the legend. I'm going to get rid of the legend. I can also get rid of the field buttons. I told us these are field, but where my mouse is currently is this year and this year, where it is writing sum of total sales and products here. They are field buttons, and you can also get rid of them so that you have more space for your chart. You can get rid of them by right clicking and coming to hide all field buttons on chart. Hide all field buttons on chart, and then you click it, and I have more space for my chart. So I can decide to introduce my axis title. Remember, I talked about axis title last week when we were talking about chart elements. The axis title is very, very compulsory to put so that people will understand your chart better. So in this axis, I'm going to name it products, make it a little bit bold. I'm going to introduce my data labels for each of the charts. I'm going to introduce my data labels for each of the charts, and I'm going to get rid of these other axes because I actually don't need them since I have data labels already. So now what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to do something extra. Now this main street footwear, this highest ranking product, I'm just going to select only it. I want to differentiate it so that it will tell a better story to myself. I'm just going to give it a separate color because it is the largest there. I just want to denote it to my stakeholders or the people I'm doing the analysis for to know that, to show them that that actually is the highest product there. So I just represented it with a different color, and then the rest are like. So this is actually good to go. I'm done. I've finished the chart for this particular analysis. So now let us move on. The next analysis is asking us to show the product category per unit sold. So we are still working with the product category, but this time we want to know the unit sold for each category. So I'm just going to go ahead and insert another pivot table, get my product listed out, but this time around we are dealing with units sold. So I'm just going to drag the unit sold and put it under values. Now, when you are talking about units sold is not in currency. You're just talking about the number of units of product that were sold. So you cannot put this in the currency. But what I can do, I can just put a comma separator. I can separate it using the comma separator, which is here. We call this the comma separator, so that there will be commas in between. Now, I can go ahead and get my charts in there. I can go ahead and get, so let me use the bar chart. Now you can see how my bar chart is a bit scattered. You can see how my bar chart is a bit scattered. Some are big, some are small, and the reason why is that I didn't sort. So the moment I sort, now let me sort from the smallest to largest. Now it will be in order. Now can you see it's in order from the largest to the smallest? So that is one of the advantages of you sorting. If you don't sort, these are your chart is going to look like. You can see the bars. They are haphazard. They are not in order. But the moment you sort, it will now be like this. Everything is in order. So I can decide to remove my grid lines to name my chart. Now the analysis this is showing is products per unit sold. Products per unit sold. And I'm just going to use that as a chart title also. Products per unit sold. I'm going to get my axis title. And then I'll name this axis products. I'll name this axis products. I'll delete this axis because I'm going to introduce my data labels. So I don't need that particular axis. So let me introduce my data labels. And I'm just going to repeat that thing I did with the earlier charts. The one that is showing the most, the one that has the largest value, I'll just represent it as something like this. You can do it. What I'm doing, what I just did now by giving a different color to the highest value. If you don't do it, it doesn't take away anything from you. I'm just deciding to do something different or to show you guys that it is possible. So if you don't do it, your chart still tells the story. It still shows the insight. So we are done with this. Now we can move on to the next analysis. So the next analysis is asking us to show the sales per month. The sales per month. So now let me go back to my sheet. Now, if you look at your master sheet, there's actually no month column there. There is no month that is showing. We don't have a month column. But the analysis is asking us to show sales per month. We don't have a month. But what we do have is we have an invoice date. We have an invoice date. And if you guys can remember, when you were being taught date functions or text functions, there is a way you can extract the month when you have a date. There's a way you can extract the month from the date. And that is what we are just going to do. So I'm just going to do that first of all. Now I'm going to insert a new column and I'm going to name it month. I'm going to name it month. So I want to use the text function. I want to use the text function. If you guys, this was done when you're doing text functions. So I'm going to use the text function to convert this date into a month. I'll select the date, comma. I'm going to write MMM, close my apostrophe, my quotation marks, close my bracket, and I press enter. Now you can see I've been able to use that formula to extract. I've been able to use that formula to extract the month from that invoice date. Now let me create my pivot table. Let me create my pivot table. Now remember we were asked to get the sales per month. Now I'm in the pivot table fields now. Though I already have a month column in my master sheet, but there is no month in the pivot table. There is no month in the pivot table. So who can tell me what I need to do to make that month column show here among other column headers? Who can tell me what to do? Yes, refresh, refresh. That is very good. Those of you saying refresh are correct. So I simply go to data, where I'm going to see the refresh button. So I refresh and I refresh all. And then right now you can see the month column is already out. So I can use the month now, drag it and put it in rows, and then also drag the sales, because that's what we are asked to sales. Now, just going to give this sales, make it a currency, and I'm going to sort. So I will know which of the states, which of the months rather, has the highest total sales. And you see, July is the month that has the highest total sales, and March is the month that has the lowest total sales. So I'm just going to visualize this now. I'm going to use a line chart. I'm going to use a line chart. Now, most times when you are visualizing information across time, across months, some school of thought may say it is very good to leave the charts unsorted. To leave the charts unsorted, because if you leave it unsorted, this is how it's going to look like. It's going to show a trend. It's going to show a trend of how sales are actually fluctuating per month. So you can leave it like this because you're actually using a line chart. So it's showing a trend how it is fluctuating. So if you leave it like this or you left it the way it was earlier, you are correct. So you can, people, especially when it has to do with line charts, they might want to see the fluctuations, how it's fluctuating, which month is going up, which month is it coming down. So if that is what they're actually interested in, or if that is what you want to show, you can leave it this way. Both of them are correct. So I'm just going to do some little modification, remove my legend. I'm going to name the chart. So this is sales per month. And I'll name my sheet that too. Sales per month. I'm going to remove my field buttons. I'm going to remove my grid lines. I don't want a data label for this. So I'm just going to leave it like that. I don't want a data label. So this is good. This is good to go. We can continue. So now let us go to the next. Let us go to the next analysis. Sales per year. Sales per year. Now let's go back to our data set. There's also no year column here. There's also no year column here, but there's still a date column. So what we are just going to do is we are going to derive the year column from that date. We are going to derive the year column from that date. So who can tell me the formula to use to get year from this date? Anybody? We have some fastest fingers in this class. Yes, I know we have 2 years. So which formula am I going to use to extract those years in this new column that I want to create? Yes, I can use text. One thing, year. Yes, I can also use year. So thank you. So now let me use the year formula. Is equals to year, open bracket, and I pick the date, and I close my bracket, and I press enter. So now it's returning it as a date for me. I just need to convert it back to a number. Then I put it in general, and then I copy this down. So you can see I already have the year extracted now. Now, let me now create a data set or a pivot table rather from this, and then okay. So you guys know the next thing I need to do. The next thing I need to do is to refresh so that that particular year column can appear. So I refresh. So I refresh and I have my year here. So yeah, and let me bring that closer to you. So we have to get the sales. So I'm just going to drop the sales here. Let me put this in a currency. So now let's visualize this using charts. I'm going to use the donut chart here. I'm going to use the donut chart here. Okay. So I'm now going to represent my data labels. Bring my data labels. So what I want now, I want to change my data labels to percentages. I don't want the actual value. I just want to know the percentage of sales in 2020 and in 2021. So I'm going to select percentage and remove the value. I taught us all this when we were talking about pie charts. So I'm just going to bring this out a bit. So the ratio is 80-20. The ratio is 80-20, 80% in the year 2021 and 20% in the year 2020. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and name my chart. So this will be sales per year and paste. Sorry, I made a mistake there. Sales per year. All right. And that is that for that. So now let us move on. Let's move on to the next analysis. The next analysis is showing us total sales per retailer. Total sales per retailer. So let's do that. This time around, we are working with the retailer. We have the retailer, we'll put it in rows. And we want to know which retailer actually sells more or which retailer generates the highest number of sales. So sales will be put in currency. Sales will be put in currency, and then I can get a chart for that. I can get a chart for that. Let me use the column chart. The column chart is one of my favorite charts. That's why I just love using it because it's very, very simple and straight to the point. So let me sort this. Let me put this in order, largest to smallest. So the West J retailer actually has the highest amount of sales there. So let me introduce my data labels for each of them. Let me remove my field buttons. I'm also going to remove this. And I'm going to introduce my axis title for the primary horizontal. So this will be retailers. And then I'm just going to name my analysis as total sales per retailer. And I'll name my sheet the same thing. All right, so I think this is good. We didn't leave anything out. This is a good representation of that particular data that we have there. So now let us move on to the next analysis. Let us move on to the next analysis. Operating profit per state, top 10. So we asked to show the operating profit for the top 10 states. The operating profit for the top 10 states. Now let's go ahead. Insert another pivot table. Now this time around, we want the states. And this time around, we're talking about the operating profit. So remember the analysis is asking us to show a top 10. So what am I going to do here? Who can tell me what am I going to do to get a top 10? So before I go ahead, someone is asking me, and it's a very good question. Someone said, if they don't have the same chart, does it mean you fail? No. That is a capital no. If you don't have the same chart as me, it doesn't mean you fail. If your analysis is correct, this is where you know if you are correct. First of all, look at your pivot table. If your pivot table is correct, whatever chart you use in visualizing the analysis is correct, as long as your analysis is correct. The most important thing that will determine your chart, just like I said last week when we were doing charts, it is your analysis from the pivot table that will determine your chart. It is whatever is on the analysis that will show on the chart. So if your analysis is correct, that's where you will know if you are correct. If your analysis is correct, whatever chart you choose. Now, for this one, I chose to use pie chart. If you had done something else and used maybe column chart, and it was like this, you are correct. You are correct because it's still the same thing I show you. 2021 is still greater than 2020. So the analysis is correct. So you are not wrong, please. So you are not wrong. You are the analyst. So that is why I taught us a variation of charts, different kind of charts. Look for the one that is good, that you know is going to represent the data well. And when I was talking about this chart, I was talking about some instances that you can actually use this chart. So if you are applying all those ones, whatever chart you use, it might be different from mine. As long as the analysis is correct, you are on the right path. All right. So where were we? Now we were talking about the states. Now filter, someone got that right. We use a filter button to filter the top 10. So we come here. You can see there's top, there's 10, and then you can just click on OK. So after that, I can now sort from largest to smallest, and I can put this in, I think, dollars. All right. So now I can get my chart for this. I can get my chart for this. Let me use a bar chart. Let me change that sorting. So I'm going to use a bar chart. Let me remove my period buttons. I'm going to remove my grid lines and remove this legend over here. Remove the legend over here. Now, I saw your message, now, Chantel. You said you thought it would be a map chart. Remember, we are filtering top 10. So the map chart, if I should filter this, if I should use a map chart for this, and that is one thing you guys used to note. Because it is a location, doesn't mean I have to use a map chart. Please let us be very, very clear. Because it is a location, doesn't mean I have to use a map chart. Yes, I can use a map chart. Yes, I can use a map chart, but I can as well use other charts. It's still telling me my information. And the reason why I don't want to use a map chart here is that I am not visualizing for the whole state. I am not visualizing for the whole state. I am visualizing for just top 10 out of those states. So the moment you do that, your chart will be showing some values and it will not be showing some values. And I don't want to have that. It might lead to confusion for the stakeholders because they might now be asking, why is it not showing? So, like I said, your chart is to make your stakeholders, to make the analysis clear as possible for your stakeholders. Is to make your analysis clear as possible for your stakeholders, so that you are not asked questions about your analysis. Once they see it, they get the insight as straight once and for all. So because I taught you guys map chart, doesn't mean anywhere you see location, you always have to use a map chart. No, you can also use other charts. I just taught you guys so that you will have that knowledge. You'll be able to use a map chart, but it's not compulsory. You need to use a map chart everywhere you see a location. I'm sure I didn't say that. All right, so now let us go ahead. So I'm choosing to use this chart, and then I'm going to name my chart. Remember, it's a top 10. So you need to include that so that it doesn't cause confusion. Because if you don't put this top 10 and you just say states per, or states with operating profit, or states or operating profit per state, and then you leave it like that, it might confuse people because they might actually think, people that don't know will think, oh, these are the only 10 states that are in US. So you need to indicate that you are actually visualizing top 10 states with highest operating profit. So top 10 states per operating profit. All right, so I think this is okay. Let me add my data labels. Data labels will look good here. Let me add my data labels. And let me make this first one as I've been doing it. Hope I've been doing it to others. I forgot to do it here. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead. So the next analysis that we are being asked to show now is the sales of products per region. Sales of products per region. Now we are going into the more technical analysis now. So some people actually struggled with this, though few got it. So now we asked to show the sales of profits per different region. So first of all, let me take my profit. Let me take my product rather. I'm going to put my product in rows. But remember, we are being asked to show, let me go back there again. We are being asked to show sales of products per region. So now region has to come into play there because it's not just sales of the product right now. We also have to indicate the region. So what I'm just going to do, I'm going to put the region in the column. I'm going to put the region in the column and then I'll put sales where sales is supposed to be, which is under values. Which is under values. So I can decide to remove my grand total. I don't want the grand total there. I thought it was this when we were still in pivot table. So here I am going to put my normal currency. So now what this analysis is showing us is that we have a sum, we have a total sales for each of these products in different regions. For example, if you are taking the Midwest, men's apparel in the Midwest sell for 2.2 million. Men's apparel in the Northeast sell for 3.4 million. Men's apparel in the South sells for 2.8, and so on and so forth. So for each of the regions, I know what the total sales amount is for each of the products. Now we're going to build a chart for this. But before I do that, let me answer this question. Someone said, are we obliged to put currency? Yes, please, because it improves your chart. You are working on a data set that is talking about sales. Sales should always be in currency, one currency or the other. Determine the currency that data set is based on and apply your currency. Yes, it is necessary. It just makes your work much simpler because imagine you are presenting to a global audience and then you are talking about sales and you're not putting currency. People will be assuming it's in pounds, why it's not in pounds. People will assume it's in yen, why it's not in yen. Or people assume it's in naira, why it's not in naira. Meanwhile, it's in dollars. And because you didn't put dollars, people will make different assumptions. And when people are making different assumptions, people will come to different conclusions. And you don't want to have ambiguous conclusions to your data. You want everybody to be on page. So you need to do something as simple as just putting your currency. So now let us build our chart for this. All right, let me use the bar chart. Now, I'm going to show us, this is one way of doing this. Now you can see, this is one way of doing this. This is one way of doing this. I'm going to show us another way of doing this, of building this chart. I'm going to show us another way of doing this analysis rather. This is one way of doing this analysis. And this is the visualization. So now you can see the regions are your legends there. And then you have your product right here. So now let me show us another way of doing this. Let me go back to my analysis. Let me go back to my analysis. So another way of doing this is that instead of putting my regions in columns, I can use my region as a filter. I can put my region as a filter. I thought it was a filter. I can put my region as a filter. So if I'm building my chart, now let me build my chart. Let me build my chart. So let me sort this. Just want to show, so I want to show us something else, something different from what we have been doing. Now, you might ask, okay, let me just get rid of it. Now look at my this thing on my chart right now. It's still showing me total sales per product. But right here, look at it in the chart. Right here, we have the region as a filter that has been added. We have the region as a filter that has been added. So if I want to know the values of these sales of these different products according to different regions, I just come here. Now, watch your chart. You guys should keep an eye on the chart. If I choose the West and I click OK, did you notice that the chart changed? Nobody noticed. Let me make it more noticeable. Let me add the column. Let me add the data labels. Let me add the data labels. So the data labels is added. Now let us filter it again. Now this actually the values we are seeing right now is for the West. But now let me remove from the West. Please keep your eye on the chart and the data labels. Now I'm choosing the Southeast and I click on OK. Now did you see that the values changed? Before it was 7 million, now it is 4 million. So I can actually use it as a filter. And on the chart, maybe I'm presenting. Maybe I presented everything. Let me check everything. So now these are the values for the whole region. Then someone is asking me, oh, we don't want to see the whole region. We are only interested in seeing for the south. All I just have to do is come to this filter button that is on the chart here, deselect everything, and only select the one I'm being asked to visualize, which is the south, and I click on OK. And then I tell them that this is the south. In the south, women's apparel actually sell more, and women's athletic footwear sell less. So someone is asking me, why can't I use the product for the filter? Yes, you can. Like I said, it depends on whoever is doing the analysis. I can put the region on the y-axis here and put the product as the filter. It is still the same analysis, still the same thing it's going to bring. So you can do that and it's still the same thing. All right. So now let us move on. So I'm going to leave it like here, and use just the filter to represent that. So just let me do the last modification and name the chart. So this would be total sales. Let me check the analysis again. This will be sales of products, total sales of products per region. I'm just going to name that as my analysis. All right. So you can see what I just showed you now. There are two ways of actually tackling an analysis such as this one that we just completed right now. So now let us move on. The next analysis is telling us to show, this can almost tell me where I stopped. Sales and profit per product. I mean, number 8. Sales and profit per product. So let me go to my master sheet and get another pivot table. Sales and profits per product. So we're still talking about the products. But this time we are getting two values, which will be total sales. So let me get again. Total sales and profit. And profit side by side. So I'm going to give both of them a currency. And now I can insert my charts. So I'm going to use a bar chart for them. Or let me use a stacked bar. Let me change this. Let me use something like this. Okay. So over here, I can get rid of all the field buttons. Get rid of my grid lines and make this a bit bigger. And then I can add my chart title. I can add my chart title. I can add my chart title. So this is sales and profits per product. So someone asked a question, said, can they use a combo chart? Yes, if you feel you want to use a combo chart and you know how to use it, very well, you can use the combo chart because you have two values in this. Yes, you can use the combo chart. It's also a very, so let me add my axis title. So I think I've answered that question. You can use your combo chart. So let me name this axis as products. As products. So I think last thing, let's see how data labels will look like here. The data labels look a bit jumbled. So I'm just going to bring back my other axis and then my grid lines also. All right. So I think this chart is good to go. This chart is good to go. So let's move on. Let's move on. I'm making progress. So the next one is operating profit per sales method. We want to know which sales method actually generates the highest amount of operating profit. So this time around, we're working with sales method. So we have three sales method there. So now let us get our operating profits. Put it in values. Put it in currency rather. Put it in currency and sort. Let me sort. So this time around, I want to use the pie chart. Let me use the donut chart. And I'm going to name my charts operating profits per sales method. Operating profit per sales method. So I get that. And just let me remove this. My legend is something that has to be there. So I can just get my data labels. I can leave them like this. I don't want to convert these to percentages right now. I want to see the values. Let me just bring them out like this. Someone here, can I use line graph? Yes, you can use line graph, but I said last week, I said line graph is mostly used for time series. When when you're trying to get compare against time, maybe months, days, years, and so on and so forth. Though you can still use it, it will still speak well about your analysis. It's good. Yeah, someone is asking, can we change the colors in the pie? Yes, you can. But honestly, I don't see why you need to change the colors. You already have three distinct colors here. You already have three distinctive colors here. So I don't see why you need to. But you can just click on any of these slides, click on any of them, go to formats, and then you change the color of the slides to whatever you want it to be. Possibly you want yellow. So you can, but I don't see why you need to. In case the client has brand colors. Well, if that's the case, I've shown you how to do so. All right, so now let's move on. Let's move on. We are done with this. We're done with this. Okay. The next chart is all about total sales and units sold per sales method. Total sales and units sold per sales method. So we're still talking about the sales method there. But right now, we want to get the total sales and units sold for each. So both of them in the values section. So for the total sales, there will be a currency. For the total sales, there will be a currency. For the sum of units sold, there is no currency. We just separate it with a comma. We'll just separate it with a comma. Yes, Latifa is asking me, is there a way to exclude total for pie charts? If you want to remove the totals now you need to have done that on your pivot table. There's a way you remove total. I just did it in this class, possibly, and I've taught it also. Well, let me just bring it again. If you want to remove total, just right click anywhere on your pivot table and go to pivot table options. Here you're going to see totals and filters. Latifa, I hope you are watching. Here you're going to see totals and filters. You click on totals and filters. Now, can you see? If I remove these two, click now, it's telling me grand totals. It's showing grand totals for rows, grand totals for rows. So unclick them and click on OK. So the total should get away from your pie chart, and then you can go ahead and have something like this. All right, so we have the sales of the total sales and units sold per sales method. So let us go ahead and visualize that. Let me do that again. Total sales. Let me look at the analysis. Total sales and units sold. Total sales and units sold. So let me use an 100% stacked bar here. And I'm just going to introduce my data labels in each. Someone is asking a question, how to remove the gap between bars. You can't remove the gap between bars because the bars are actually comparing against each other. You are using them for comparison. You are using them for comparison. So you cannot remove the gap between them. There always have to be a gap between them because those bars are representing different values. Those bars are representing different values. So if you remove the gap, they become merged together. So if they are merged together, how are you going to use them to compare? So you cannot remove the space between bars. All right. So this one, let me just give it a white color and do the same thing for the other one. So it's a bit bigger. So I can remove this green line here. Now my chart title is missing. So my chart title will be total sales and up profits per sales method. All right. Let me correct this. Okay. So I think we are done with this analysis. So let's move on. Let's move on. The next analysis we have there is price and units sold per product. We are back to products. Price and units sold per product. So let's get another analysis for that. Price per unit sold per product. So now let's get our products. So let's check the analysis again. Price and units sold. So we have a price per unit, and we also have units sold. Let me bring this closer to you guys. So some of units sold, like I said, cannot be a currency, can only count them. Price is a currency. Price is a currency. So let me, what chart should we use? Let me use a column chart. Let me use an 100% stacked. So right here, let me get rid of the field buttons. Let me get rid of the grid lines. Let me bring my data labels so that it's labeled, my chart title out. Let me give this a deeper color, or what color will show there most. Okay, black will show. Let me make it be bolder. Do the same thing for these ones to make it bolder. And I'm going to get rid of this axis here. So now I can name this units sold. Units so I can name my sheet accordingly. So I think this has done justice to this. This has done justice to this. So now let us go ahead. The next question says price and units. Okay, I think that's what we just did. I think that's just so the next one, units sold per year. Units sold per year. So we want to know which year sells or which year sold more units. Which year sold more units? So we already have our year out already, 2020 and 2021. So now let's just go, let's just benchmark it against the units sold. So the unit sold is not in currency. I'm going to put that as so let me get a donut chart for that. Let me type to my charts. Units sold per year. Units sold per year. Let me bring back my data labels. Label that. Just going to bring this out. Oh, I think okay, yeah, you're correct. You're correct. You're correct. We are correct. All right, so that's that for that. Let me just copy. Okay, I've already named it. Now let's get the last analysis for today. Operating profits and total sales per retailer. Operating profits and total sales per retailer. So let's get the pivot table for that. So let's get our retailer out first and then get the operating profit and total sales for them. So both are in currency. I'm just going to go ahead and okay, let's use this. Let me sort. Please, those of us that are raising your hand, let us wait till the end of the class. If you can type your questions, that is easier for me to read than unmuting you. I can answer your questions while I'm working. So if you can type your questions, you can find place type. But if you want to actually speak, you need to wait till end of the class to do that. Let me see my data labels here and my chart title. Okay, so I'll just leave it like this. So this is operating profit and total sales per retailer. All right. So now that brings us to the end of the analysis, the um, assignment that we were given last week, and we've been able to build charts for each and every one of them. So someone is asking a question. I just want to clarify something. You said each retailer are repeated and they have different retail ID. So you thought you were supposed to involve the retail ID. No, you're not talking about retail ID. Retail ID is something different. The retailers, we only have 6 retailers on that data set. And these are the retailers they said here. So the retailer ID means something else, but the retailer is actually unique. You only have 6 retailers. So when you're giving analysis, it's also a job like data. You need to concentrate and know what you are being asked to ask. The retailer idea there, if you look at it, is something different. It's something different because we can have a retailer. For example, let us take example, this WestJet. You can have this WestJet and have like 10 different WestJet retailers in just one city, but everything is still WestJet. And each of those WestJet retailers will have their own ID. Maybe WestJet 1, WestJet 2, WestJet 3, WestJet 4. That is what the retailer ID means, but it is still one retailer. So, Rita, I hope that is not confusing enough and you understand. So, okay, I think I have so many people that actually want to ask questions in this class. So, if you have any question now, I'll finish the analysis. You are supposed to move on to dashboard building, but I would like to take some questions to satisfy people who has questions about these assignments. So, if you have any questions to ask, kindly just use the hand function and I'll unmute you guys and I'll take your question one by one. Wow, there are a whole lot of people. Okay, let me start from the first person that is on my list here. Ilori Abayomi, please, I'm unmuting you. Go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you. The name is Ayobami, not Abayomi. Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Okay, all right. Please, I want to ask, while I was trying submitting my assignment, I discovered that inside that my assignment, I used three major charts. I used three maps, I used funnel, and I used that word map. So
Okay.
when I was trying submitting, I now viewed all my work. All the sheet was telling me, it said it doesn't support all these other charts. Those three: map, funnel, and tree map. So I have to delete it to really put another one so that you will not see empty chart or empty something over there. So I want to ask, did out of people that submitted, did they get? Do you get anything from funnel combo? I mean funnel, tree map, and map. I want to. That's number one. Then number two, I want to still ask also the when you are labeling, you only label the x-axis, the y-axis you are omitting it. Is it no matter that way?
Okay, all right. Thank you
Okay, all
for.
right.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Very well. I can hear you.
Okay, all right. Thank you for
Okay, all
that.
right.
So let me address that. The first one, so that looks quite a bit strange for me. I had so many people that submitted and they used those charts that you talked about, and I was able to get their feedback. So maybe there's something wrong somewhere in the Excel cannot tell you that you cannot submit or share those files because of some specific because you are using some specific charts because you are using some specific charts. So, but I'll take a look into that. So for me not using, so your question, you said I didn't name the other axis. I think I've been, you said that there's one axis I'm naming and then the other axis I'm not naming. If I'm not doing that, it's blow of time. I'm pressed for time. So if I was doing this on my own, or for a client, I would have taken my time to actually. So you can see I actually did it here and didn't do it for the others. So it was something I omitted. So please, it's not something you should also omit. I omitted myself because of time, and since I'm trying to correct myself here now. So this should be sales slash profit because that is what. So because of time, I had to just rush through so that we don't we're able to do something in tonight's class. So thank you for that detailed question, those detailed questions. So the next person I'm moving on to now is Seth. Seth, please, I've omitted you. Please go ahead and ask the question.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Me, I have a question on analysis we have done on price and units sold per product. If you look at the analysis, you put the sum of units sold and the sum of price per product. Should it be the sum of price per product, or you should look at the average price of each product? Because if I check the question, it's saying let me see. The question is talking of price and units sold per product. Or the one who did my own thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you done?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I'm done.
So I didn't get the question. What was the question?
Okay. If you look at the analysis that you have done, if you can go back to
I'm
the
seeing the
table.
analysis. This is the analysis.
Yes. If you look at you see the title is unit sold and price per product. But if you go to your pivot table under the price, it reads, yes, sum of price per unit. Should it be sum of price per unit, or you should look at the average price of each product?
So,
Should we use sum, or should we use an average price? If
so
you check at
I
the
understand
nini,
you. Let me answer your question, please.
yes.
So I think you are confusing yourself. Now look at the analysis. Look at what was asked. You are bringing in average. There was nowhere in that analysis that an average was mentioned. So you guys need to avoid using your own personal understanding to solve questions that have been given to you. The client is asking you to get the total sales or the unit sold and price per product. Now, it is not for you to argue because the client actually knows what he or she wants to get from his or own data and has told you, oh, please let me analyze this thing and get me this result. So it is not for you to use your own personal maybe observation and say, oh, instead of you getting the unit, so why not get the average? If the person wanted to find the average would have been included there. So you bringing on the average, we were not asked to get the average. We were asked to get the total units sold and the total price per unit. And that is what you have on your data set. Because that is what the pivot table did for us. It got the price per unit of all the products. It added all of them. That's why I'm saying sum. It got the total price. So maybe what I did wrong was not naming this and telling you that the sheet telling you this is actually a total unit sold, total unit sold, and total price. Maybe that's where the confusion came from. But the analysis is correct because we are not actually get an average. All right. Yes, each product has its own price. Tina said each product has its own price. So what we wanted to get, we wanted to sum the price for all the products. For example, maybe they are selling Milo in store A 20 naira. They are selling Milo in store B 30 naira. And they are selling Milo in store C 40 naira. So now we want to know the total price of that Milo in those three stores. We want to know the total price of Milo in those three stores. You add all of them together to know, okay, in this particular Milo actually costs. That is, I'm just trying to find something to relate it to what we are saying. Yes, each of them has its own price. But remember, each product. Now, that is why the sum, look, it's written there, the sum, the whole prices that product cost in the market, everything was added together. Everything was added together. So that is what the analysis. If we have been asked to get an average, sure, we can get an average. You can do that on your pivot table. I've taught us how to get average, but we are not asked to get the average. We are asked to get the price per unit, and that is why we are using a sum. All right. So the next person here is Favor. Favor, please go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone. Um, and I don't really have a question. I just, while I was working, I did some browsing and research or something, and I found out that okay, we have a shortcut that can work for me. Use getting a chart, the most suitable chart for a pivot table. So it gave me alternates, the alt F1. So I don't know if I can continue to use that since it said it's best chart for the pivot table, or I can still change it to suit because I've been saying customers, of course we're working for customers. So I can make it much more better to suit customers' demand. Hello?
Okay. Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you. I can hear you. So I think, yeah, I think I'll just repeat what I told somebody earlier. Whatever charts you feel you want to use to present your information is good. But the thing you need to be sure of when you are using those charts is that are those charts effectively going to tell the story behind the data? Will your stakeholders understand that data? Will that chart show the key insights that you actually want to show? If you can answer all these questions, fine. And for each chart, you actually need to modify them to increase their readability, and that is by using the chart elements. So there is no one chart fits all, or this is the chart that is supposed to be used. That chart is not supposed to be used. As long as it's telling the right story, as long as it's showing you the insights from your data. Now look at this particular chart that you have on your screen now. I can use like 3 to 4 or 5 different charts to tell the same story, to show the same insights. Now, I can use a very, very good chart, but if I don't apply the right chart element, that chart will turn out to be a bad chart. Because imagine me not titling that chart. Imagine me not naming the axis. Imagine me not adding data labels where data labels is supposed to be added, or imagine me removing the legend. So you need to know the chart that is telling the correct insight, and then you also need to know how to modify the chart. So when you can do this to any chart is actually good to go. Even though they have the best of times that they can use them, but any chart is actually good to represent once you know how to use them perfectly and you know how to modify them. So it's good. I hope I've been able to answer that to your taste. Let me know if you want, if that is good for you. So I have Latifa here. Latifa, please go ahead and I've omitted you. Please go ahead and ask a question.
Okay, good evening, sir. Well done,
Mm.
and thanks for all you do. Please, I have 2 questions. My first question is, while trying to do my assignment, at a point I couldn't get that bar where we normally choose our data from. I don't know if you understand.
Which bar is that?
Hello?
I can I can hear you. I can hear you. Which bar is that?
Yeah. Where we normally choose our data from, where we drag from to put it inside filter and column.
The pivot table fields. Are you talking about? Come, let me bring it out. Are you talking about this one right here on the right? Can you see my
Yes,
screen?
yes. So
Oh,
the thing just disappeared. So at a point, I had to click on but this thing that is beside I think choose which add to reports. So I had to place it side by side before I could drag those things inside their feeds.
okay, let me answer that before we go ahead. Let me answer that before you go to your next question. So I think I pointed this out. So in case once now, let me show you this thing. You see this pivot table field, this thing that you said disappeared. As long as you are clicked on your pivot table or on a pivot chart, it will always be there. Do you get? As long as you click on either your pivot table or your chart, this pivot table field that you said it disappeared, it will always be here. But the moment you click any other way, any other place else, now look at where I clicked. I just clicked on my spreadsheet. Can you see that it's disappeared? Latifa, are you there?
Yes.
Can you see that it's disappeared? So for you to
Yes,
bring it
sir.
back,
Yeah.
just click on your pivot table. And then there are some times where you will even be clicked on your pivot table and you won't see it. Can you see I'm still clicked on the pivot table and I can't see it? So when you are faced with something like this, so just right click anywhere on your pivot table. Right click anywhere on your pivot table and go to the last option, show field list. Can you see it?
Yes.
Show field list. The moment you click on show field list, it's going to come back from wherever it disappeared to.
You don't get, like,
Okay.
it's bringing all these graphics between areas below. It's bringing all those ones, but where I pick from exactly, where we have sales ID, retailer ID,
You
so
couldn't find
those
them.
ones I don't.
Okay, you know what? You know what? Screenshot this problem to me and send it to me so that I can know where you're talking about. Just send me a screenshot of it. So what?
Hello?
Can you hear me? Did you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, Succeed, I can barely hear you.
I
But
think that
please, if you can, I hope you understand my question.
Yeah,
If you
so
do, just I'll
I
probably
said,
listen to you.
screenshot your message. Screenshot your problem and drop it in the group so I can see what you're talking about. Did you get me?
Okay,
Yeah. So what's
okay,
your
okay,
second
yes.
question?
Okay, sorry, my
Latifa, I can't hear you anymore. All right, because of time. So Latifa, you can drop your questions in the group chat or on the meeting chat while you're here. I think your network is kind of bad. So the last person I have here raising her hand is Catherine. Catherine, please can you go ahead and ask your question? So just to confirm, I don't know if it's my network or Latifa's network. If you guys can actually still hear me, please let me know in the comment section. If you guys can actually still hear my voice and see my screen, please let me know. Oh, okay. So it's from our own end. So Catherine, I think you are up now. I've omitted you. Please go ahead and ask your question so we can tackle it.
Okay, thank you for this. I actually want to take you back to where we were calculating
Please can you be
the
audible? Please can you speak louder?
oh, okay. Now you can hear me.
Yes, go
There
ahead.
is the chart that we developed on the total sales per year, where we introduced the year.
Okay.
After introducing from my end, when you now develop the pivot table, the
Okay.
year was not appearing. Of course, even after refreshing, um it's appearing in the pivot table fields,
Okay.
but when on the raw labels, it was bringing a value, not a year,
Mm.
actually with six numbers.
What value was it bringing?
So I don't know where
What value was it bringing?
19, 1947, 50, 78 instead of 2020 or
Now,
2021.
now,
But I
okay.
can see here. Mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
Now, I'm taking you back to your sheet. Now, when you converted it to your year, did you write, can you see my screen?
Yeah,
When you converted to your year, what formula did you use?
equals year
Equals
enter.
year. Fine. That's what I also used to. So
Mhm.
now, did you get your answer as this? Written as 2021. Did you get your answer as this?
Yes,
You got your
yes,
answer.
yes, yes.
And when you now went to your pivot table,
Yeah,
when you went to your pivot table, did you see the year in the table fields as this?
yes,
And
it is
and you
there.
said you dragged it into your axis and it's showing you.
Okay, that's what I didn't do. Let me do that now.
Okay, try to do that and let me know if you got it right. All right. So I think I don't have any other person with any other questions. So we can go ahead with today's business. What we've just been doing is tackling last week's business. So now what we're going to be doing for this week, what we are going to be learning for this week is how to build a dashboard. Is how to build a dashboard. So permit me guys, let me just quickly show you guys how a dashboard actually looks like in Microsoft Excel. So you know what we are aiming for. So let me open another data set and show you guys what a dashboard is. What is a dashboard in Excel? A dashboard in Excel is simply a collection of charts. A dashboard in Excel is simply a collection of charts where all your analysis will show as one. Now, this is how a dashboard looks like in Excel. This is how a dashboard looks like in Excel. Now you can see it is not something strange to you guys because everybody knows how to build a chart now. But you can see how everything was brought together in one. So now, before we all had our chart as this on individual pages, on individual sheets rather. We all had our chart on individual sheets, just like this. But the dashboard will harmonize all those charts and show them as one. It's going to collect all those charts. Now, if you are analyzing for a stakeholder, you present your charts, you present your visualizations as a dashboard so that they can take just one glance at it and get their insights. They don't need to be going through each sheet, just like we built ours. You build a dashboard and then you place all your charts on them so that it is being shown at a glance. So that is what we are going to be doing with the data that we have built in tonight's class. So now, how do we build a dashboard, or what are the 4 steps to building a dashboard? Now, I used to tell my students, if you want to build a dashboard is just like building a house. A dashboard is just like building a house. Remember, each of these our charts are what we are taking to the dashboard. Each of these our charts are what we are taking to the dashboard. So you need to have prepared the dashboard first. It's just like me wanting to move into a new house. I need to have prepared the house first. Or I want to build a house. I need to have drawn the plan. So that's the first thing you have to do when you are building a dashboard. You need to draw the plan of your dashboard. I call it mapping. You need to map out your dashboard. Now, if you look at the analysis we've done in this class, we've done 13 analyses. And from those 13 analyses, we've built 13 charts, which means whatever dashboard I'm going to be building has to be able to house 13 charts. I need to build that chart to contain 13 charts. And what is the best way of doing that? For we newbies, the best way is take a pencil, get a paper, map out, draw out a dashboard. And your dashboard can be in 2 ways. Your dashboard can be in 2 ways. Is either you have a portrait dashboard or a landscape dashboard. The one I showed us earlier, let me open it again. That is a landscape. For those of us that have done Microsoft Office Word very well, you know what a landscape and a portrait is. Now, this is a landscape. A landscape is usually wide. So you can see that this dashboard is actually wide. It's wider. And then you have a portrait. That portrait will be longer. So you can have your dashboard in any of these 2 formats. Any of them is actually good. There's no one that is good. There's no one that is, you can use any of them at whatever time. So after you have gotten the orientation to use, whether it's a landscape or whether it's a portrait, now the next thing you need to do is to map. What do I mean by mapping? You now start dividing the dashboard into areas. You divide the dashboard into areas where your chart will now be placed. Remember I said your dashboard is of 13. We have 13 charts. It's going to make up our dashboard. So if you are dividing now, if you are building on the paper, one of the first things you need to first of all map out. I don't know why I keep closing this. One of the first things that you first of all need to map out when you are drawing a dashboard, first of all, map out your dashboard title. Map out an area for your dashboard title. And the dashboard title that we have here is Adidas Sales Dashboard. So what is that? Map out when you are mapping it on the paper, when you are drawing it on the paper, your dashboard title is always, most times, is always placed at the top. So map out the top area for your dashboard. Map out the top area for your dashboard. You just draw a line, okay, and write title. That is where your title will be. Then the remaining area that you have below, you can now divide them according to the number of charts you have. You divide them according to the number of charts that you have. So after you have done that, you can now be placing the charts in the areas that you have already mapped out. You start placing the charts in the areas that you have already mapped out. Now, this mapping out of a thing helps you. It helps a lot in the sense that you will not run out of space and your work will be very, very organized because you have already created a space for each of the charts. So you already know where you are placing them and it makes your work so smooth. You will work smoother than someone that is just working and just placing them anyhow where they feel like. Is that the person runs out of space or the dashboard is not being aligned well? And what we are going to be using this dashboard is what I taught us last week. That's why I took my time to teach us. We are going to be using shapes and text box. Everything that you see on this dashboard that you are seeing on screen now was built using a shape, a rectangle shape. Was built using a shape, a rectangle shape. And that is what we are going to be doing tomorrow. Because I don't want to start now, we'll not finish. It takes a long process. So by tomorrow's class, we are starting off, we already have an analysis. So let me close this. So everybody that completed the analysis, it is that analysis that you did that we are going to be using to build a dashboard. Those of us that have not yet completed it, please, we have between today and tomorrow. Try to work up on your analysis, complete your analysis, because it is this same analysis that you did that we are going to be using to build a live dashboard in tomorrow's class. And so tomorrow is a necessary class for everybody to join. because that will be where we are going to be almost drawing close to Microsoft Excel by learning how to build a dashboard. All right. So I'll just like to throw it back to you guys. If anybody has any other questions pertaining to today's class or last week's class or any other thing else, a question, a suggestion, anything, you can let us have it so we can trash it out. Yeah, we don't need to have the same chart. I think I mentioned this earlier. No, don't change your chart, please. Whatever chart you have built, leave it there. We are not supposed to have the same dashboard. And that's something I need to note. If I give, as I gave all of you the same data set, I am not expecting the same dashboard. I am not expecting the same charts. What I'm expecting is the same analysis. And that's the work done on your pivot table. That is the work done on your pivot table. That is what I mean. That is what has to be uniform across board, the pivot table, because that is where the analysis is. Now, Mr. A can decide to use a column chart. Mr. B can decide to use a bar chart. It is still the same thing. It is still the data is still being visualized. We are just using different charts. So if you know you've done the right thing in terms of your chart, please leave it like that. Don't change it, please. For someone asking me to go over a map chart, I will refer you to last class. Last class with two. If I should say I want to take a map chart with you now, I'm going to rush because of time. But you can do yourself a favor, go through the last class. I took my time. I extensively and comprehensively broke down the map chart. I think I explained it over two times or three charts. So please watch that video again, and I believe you understand how to use the map chart. So my last question here for the day will be Seth. So Seth, I'm unmuting you. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Teacher, I wanted to
My
ask
name is, please
about.
use my name. My name is Jide. I don't like being called teacher. All right, go ahead, please.
Okay, you people from Western, your names are somehow tricky, difficult to pronounce. That's why I used the teacher.
I understand. Go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, now I wanted to ask, will we handle Power Query?
Yes,
Will we do Power Query?
yes, we're going to do Power Query, but not in Excel. Power Query is going to be taught to you guys in the next module of data analysis, which is Power BI. You are going to extensively cover Power Query in Power BI.
Okay,
Yes. So is that all?
thank you. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. So without further questions, your hand is up, Emeka. You said your hand is up, but I can't see your hand. Okay. You're just raising up your hand in the chat section. You're supposed to use the hand feature. Well, let me look for your name. Okay, I've omitted you. Please go ahead. Emeka, I've omitted you.
Okay, I'm here. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Okay, I wanted to ask first, is there not going to be any data cleaning, proper data cleaning because when you collect this data, they come as raw and dirty.
Okay.
So is there not going to be any data cleaning? That is one.
Okay.
Okay. Two is that, yes, you said you're going to use Power Query for analysis in Power BI. But I also discovered that you can use Power Query and Power Pivot also for Excel. Because that's exactly what I used. I imported this indirectly and I went straight to my Power Query editor. Even that is, I'm just looking at it as I'm talking to you. So it's not something that we also be taught that Excel can also have it, because it's like you.
So is that all? Are those the two questions?
Yes, these are the questions.
Okay, all right, thank you. So when you're talking about data cleaning functions, you have actually been taught some data cleaning function in Excel that possibly you've not had the course to apply. Your text functions, some of the text functions are actually data cleaning functions. For example, I can give you, there's a text function where trim is a data cleaning function where you can use it to reduce unnecessary spaces. I agree with you. There are some data that you download that are not clean. And most of those data, because I've downloaded some myself, most of these data used to have more spaces than they should. So the trim function in Excel is going to help you to do that. So we've done some data cleaning functions in Excel that you might have not known the applications, but more is going to be taught to you guys. And that falls under Power Query. Yes, Power Query is in Excel. Power Query is in Excel, but we are all working with a schedule. Do you get? If we teach Power Query in Excel, we also have to teach it in Power BI. That is why we left it for the Power BI session, and it will be treated extensively in Power BI. So I'll just ask you to just be patient a bit. We are almost in next 2 weeks, we are hitting Power BI. So Power Query is going to be taught there. So it's still the same thing. There's Power Query in Excel, there's Power Query in Power BI. So when we get to the Power BI phase, we'll teach it. Even here, somebody said removing duplicates. Thank you very much, Chantel. Removing duplicates when we're table is also a data cleaning function. So you just need to know when you have been taught, you might not necessarily have been told that it's for data cleaning. So when you're applying it, you actually know you're cleaning your data. Because when you're removing duplicates from your data, that is also a data cleaning function. And I believe you know how to do that. So we've taught some data cleaning functions and we'll still teach more in Power Query. All right, thank you very much. So with that, I would like to bring tonight's class to a close. It has been wonderful impacting knowledge on you guys. It was a very, very interactive class, and I was happy to be here tonight. So I'll look forward to actually having you guys here tomorrow. I've told you what to look out for. We are going to be building a live dashboard in tomorrow's class. So I hope to see you guys here tomorrow by special grace of God. All right, so without further ado, I'd like to wish you guys a wonderful night. See you guys all here tomorrow. Bye.